Hi, everyone. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited to share with you some information about the University of Southern California, and more specifically, the Masters of Science program in Environmental Engineering. I'm joined today by Professor Kelly Sanders, who you will hear from later, as well as Christine Shea, who is part of the Student Services team in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department, as well as a current Environmental Engineering Master's student, Albert Liu. So you'll get to hear from everyone in just a few minutes. I'm just going to go over some housekeeping items so that you're aware of important deadlines coming up and some general information. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so first and foremost, congratulations on your admission to the University of Southern California. We know how hard all of you have worked to get to this very moment, and we do want to celebrate all of your achievements. So welcome to the Trojan family. This is a connection that we say is lifelong and worldwide, and we really, really hope to welcome you to our campus this fall. Hopefully you have already had some information about the University of Southern California. We are a private research university in downtown Los Angeles, and the School of Engineering in particular is one of the leading graduate engineering programs in the country. USC itself has more than 49,000 students on its campus, and in the engineering school, which is one of the largest professional schools on the campus, we have more than 6,000 students pursuing their master's or PhD degrees in engineering disciplines. I want to point your attention to the headline here, Engineering a Better World for Humanity. This is something that's near and dear to our School of Engineering Dean, as well as something that you can see influenced in all of the work that we do in the research that's being conducted in the School of Engineering and projects that our students are taking part in. Everything we do is with the intention of making society a better place for all people and addressing some of society's challenges of today and of the future. The engineering alumni network is also quite large and expansive, 76,000 engineering alumni worldwide. So you will feel part of a community within the School of Engineering at the university, and certainly after you graduate, you'll be able to forge really meaningful connections in both academic and career. We are also, as I mentioned, a research university, meaning there is a lot of groundbreaking research being done in our various research centers and labs. In the School of Engineering, we have 38 research centers alone. We are a leader in funded research and have $213 million in annual research expenditures. Our location is definitely one of the biggest factors that a student might choose to come and study at the University of Southern California. So you can see where our campus is located somewhat on this map. We are near downtown Los Angeles, and just about 30 minutes towards the coast, we have an area that's known as Silicon Beach. This is a sort of hub for innovation. It is an ecosystem of startups and also a lot of branches of tech companies that are headquartered in Silicon Valley are based there. LA, in addition to being a global hub for innovation, is a center for international business and arts and entertainment. There's no shortage of things for you to do here. And it also is a very strategic place for you to study as an engineer with many, many career opportunities available to you. Something that I want to bring to your attention that maybe if you are a student outside of the United States, you may or may not have heard of is the US infrastructure law, which was passed recently by President Biden. This is something that I want to mention just because it has fantastic implications for you as environmental engineers in terms of the many jobs that will become available as a result of this legislation. There is a huge investment taking place to make sure that water is cleaner, that legacy pollution is being addressed, that climate change is being addressed through the various initiatives that you see here. So there is a strong push in the United States to follow through with these various important missions, and the work that you do certainly has an important role in that. I know that many of you are also very interested to know where our graduates end up working upon completion of their program. And we do have a lot of that information available to you. In the link that's listed on the bottom of the slide, you can find a more comprehensive list of the positions and companies where our environmental engineering students have gone on to work upon graduation. We also post for you some interesting statistics here for you that kind of emphasize what I was saying about Los Angeles and California in particular being a fantastic place for you as an environmental engineer to work after you finish your program. Our community is very diverse and supportive. We have students spanning virtually every state in the country and more than 100 countries in the world. So you will have a lot of opportunities to enrich your education through your peers and hear very diverse perspectives. There are also many ways that you can get involved in your academic interests, your social interests, or feel part of your cultural community. There are many student organizations that you can explore at the University of Southern California to make friendships and to thrive outside of the classroom as well. I encourage you to chat with some of our current students. There is a way to do that online right now. On our website, you can chat with some of our Viterbi graduate student ambassadors, including students from the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department. They are more than happy to speak with you and share some information about what their experience at USC has been like and any advice or answer questions that you may have. We will be able to do that in today's presentation as well with Albert here to share his experiences. Here are some other helpful resources that you just want to be aware of. You can take a virtual tour of our campus if you have not experienced it yet. I highly recommend that so you can kind of see yourself here at our university. You can also see the various student organizations that are housed within the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering as well as throughout the university. We have a lot of safety and wellness resources that you can also look into. And if you're an international student, I do recommend you check out the OIS website, which lists all of the various support services available to you as well when you're a student here. Final reminders, there are 2 important deadlines that I want to make sure you're aware of. If you are an international student, you should submit your financial documents by April 15th. So that's coming up soon. That's the last day to submit your financial documents to give us enough time to process them and send you your official letter of admission. May 1st is the last day for all of you to submit your statement of intent. So the last day that you can accept your admission offer from us is May 1st, and you do that through the USC portal. The sooner you submit the statement of intent, the sooner you have access to many other resources, such as information about orientation, a mentorship program where you can get paired with a current graduate student who helps you navigate life at Viterbi. You'll also be able to connect with your department through more comprehensive academic webinars involving course registration and other really important information. If you're a DEN student, you will be able to set up your DEN at Viterbi profile and start exploring housing options in Los Angeles for those of you that will be moving here. Here are some ways that you can get in touch with us and stay in contact. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Kelly Sanders, who is the Dr. Te Fu Yen Early Career Chair and Associate Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering. Welcome, Dr. Sanders. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jessica. It's great to see you guys, even in this virtual environment. I look forward to meeting you all in person soon. Again, my name is Kelly Sanders, and I'm an associate professor here in Civil and Environmental Engineering. So I'm more on the environmental side. So I'm going to be really casual here. So, feel free to put questions in the chat. Tell you a little bit of background about myself, about my research group, just because my research lends itself to some of the classes that I teach here. And I'll tell you something about my classes. Albert is here and he has taken my class, so he can tell you the truth about how bad it is or good it is. And then I'll tell you a little bit about some of the other faculty in the department, just to give you a taste for, some of the research interests, some of the expertise of some of our faculty here. But again, I'm very casual, so feel free to pipe in whenever you have questions. So I started out, I had sort of a circuitous route to environmental engineering. So if you're still, not quite sure that you're in the right place in the world, you can follow my lead. I got a bachelor's in bioengineering. And then I got a master's in mechanical engineering. And then I finally settled on a PhD in environmental engineering. So I kind of started my journey out in engineering at a very different place than I ended up. So I went to Penn State for bioengineering. I was really interested in movement and rehabilitation. And then I got kind of swept away in this whole conversation about climate change. So I went to the University of Texas. I studied energy systems. So I went into a very fundamentals heavy mechanical engineering background. So that's really where my expertise is in terms of energy systems. And then for my PhD, I really looked at the relationship that energy systems has on the environment. So I look a lot at what I'll call the energy water nexus. So whether it's our power plants, the way we produce oil and natural gas, the way we produce biofuels, all of our energy sources actually have enormous water implications. So these energy sources take a lot of water for energy production. Without water, you can't cool our thermal power plants. Without water, you can't grow biofuels. Without water, you can't produce oil and gas. And so drought is actually becoming a constraint on our energy systems. On the opposite side of this energy water nexus is the energy that we use for water. Just out of curiosity, is anyone brave enough in the audience to tell me where our water comes from in Los Angeles? Okay, so this is very exciting. You guys have chosen the right place based on this fact alone. So 90% of all of the water that comes to the city of Los Angeles has traveled over 200 miles to get here. So it's either been pumped 400 miles from the north, it's either been piped 242 miles from the east. Only 10% of the water that you drink in Los Angeles is actually originated in Los Angeles itself. So that's kind of a preposterous situation that we have put ourselves in. We have the second largest metropolitan city in the United States, and we have no natural water system. So that is a tremendous opportunity and challenge for civil and environmental engineers. So that's one of the reasons why I came to Southern California, because I was fascinated at the fact that we decided to put 15 million people in a place with no water. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So that is going to be your challenge. Being and operating as a civil and environmental engineer in Los Angeles. And moving forward, the city has a lot of really exciting opportunities because of those challenges on the water side. We have committed to going to 100% water recycling. So the city has basically made a goal to recycle 100% of the water that goes down the drain into the wastewater treatment system to offset some of those water supplies. Right now we're at 2%. So we have a long way to go from 2% to 100%. On the energy side, I was part of a project a few years ago where we did some analysis, basically asking the question, can the city of Los Angeles move to 100% renewable energy? And now that is a very aggressive goal, because right now we are nowhere close to that, but we know because of climate change, we're going to have to get there. And so my research said, yes, we think it's possible. City of Los Angeles, here's the blueprint. And the city of Los Angeles ended up making a goal, revising its old goal. So by 2035, which sounds like a very long time from now, but it's really not, this city will be powered on 100% renewable energy, which is pretty extraordinary. It is the most aggressive carbon reduction goal of any city in the nation. So you guys have a fascinating water system. You have a fascinating energy system. And I would say that that means jobs. So that's my kind of pitch for why Los Angeles is an incredible town to be a civil and environmental engineer. Other than that, my research group is just to give you a little sense of what I'm doing for research besides the things that I just talked about. I have 9 PhD students right now, and we're really looking at relationships between energy and water and climate change. So I told you a little bit about the relationship between energy and water. And my students are also looking at how climate change might play into this whole energy water nexus. So how might rising temperatures impact our residential energy consumption? So as it gets hotter, for example, we use more air conditioning, and we're really looking at how those air conditioning trends might affect different populations. So we're finding that there's a lot of poor populations across the city that don't have access to AC. And so we're trying to come up with strategies about how climate change might affect those vulnerable communities and what we might do to try to help those vulnerable communities. Because believe it or not, of any of the natural disasters that we have, and we're talking about earthquakes, we're talking about floods, we're talking about lightning, we're talking about storms. If you add up all of the fatalities of all of those natural events combined, it's less than the people that die every year because of extreme heat. A lot of people don't realize that. So we're working a lot on that extreme heat issue as well. So that's kind of a little snapshot about me and my research, to give you a sense of who I am and how I work with my students outside the classroom. Inside the classroom, my class is called Energy and the Environment. So it's E&E 505. And I think the majority of you, if not all of you will have to take it. So apologize in advance. Again, Albert can fill you in offline. But we're really looking at how energy systems impact the environment. So we talk about how energy is grown or mined or produced. And then we talk about how energy, those primary energy sources, are converted into electrical power or into gasoline or into jet fuel or into biofuels. And then we talk about how when we consume those fuels, they have an environmental impact. So there's water impacts along the supply chain. There's obviously air quality impacts that we talk about. There's impacts on the climate. There's also a lot of social and political ramifications of those energy systems. So if you were taking my energy class right now, what would we be talking about? Albert probably has a pretty good guess, but we would be talking about the Russia and Ukraine tensions, because at the base of that, at the foundation of that, is an energy issue. It's an energy conflict. Energy is navigating a lot of this geopolitical conflict. And that's why I love studying energy, because it's so much bigger than just the environmental impacts or the economic impacts. Our entire world spins because of the things that we do and need from energy systems. And so we kind of unpack that in my class. So hopefully that's a little bit of a teaser for you. Besides that, so I'm kind of the energy guru of the team. We also have some professors that are experts in water quality. So you'll take some water chemistry classes if you're on the water side. You'll take some water treatment classes. You'll learn a lot about membranes from some of the best researchers in the field. Talk about things like bioremediation, anaerobic digesters, wastewater treatment. So we have some really, really outstanding faculty on the water side. We also have our air side, where you'll learn a lot about air pollution, how air chemistry kind of morphs and changes across the LA basin, about how greenhouse gases cause climate change. And, one of the professors, for example, Professor Kostas Siotis, he has been really central to some of the increases in air quality in Los Angeles over the decades. So you're really learning from some of the best and the brightest here in the department. So I think that I might stop there. I put a lot at you, so we can talk about, I don't know, Christine, if you had any remarks that you'd like to talk about.
I don't even feel like I need to be here. You're going to steal my job. No, I'm here if anyone else has questions, more of the nitty gritty about coursework, but I think it's okay if we open it for questions, or I'll let Jessica decide.
And Christine is being very humble. She is your go-to for everything. unfortunately for her, from my standpoint, like, go ask Christine, don't believe a word that I say. But does anyone have questions about anything, classes, research, living in Los Angeles, Russia and Ukraine?
I can ask you a question that I get often from students while the students, think about their questions. Dr. Sanders, as a master's student, if someone wants to get involved with research, what are some ways to do that? I think the perception is that that's usually reserved for PhD students, but how might a master's student reach out to a professor or pursue research opportunities?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So here at USC, most research or most master's students who want to participate in research will do so through directed research credits. So I typically work with 1 to 2 to 3 master's students per semester. Usually the master's students would have taken my class because it gives them a little bit of a taste of what I do and what my expertise is, and it gives them a little bit of foundation. And a lot of times what will happen is a student will say, hey, Dr. Sanders, I really liked your class and I'd like to explore these issues in a little bit more depth. Can you tell me about your research group? And we'll see if it's a match. And if so, the master's students can sign up for 1 to 3 credits of research during the semester. And me and that student will devise a project. Sometimes it might be really doing a deep dive into a topic they enjoyed in class. Sometimes they'll work side by side with one of my PhD students. So I'm working with a student right now named Jen, and she was absolutely fantastic in my class. And she came to me and said, oh, I'm really interested in electricity. So she's actually working with one of my PhD students, and she's analyzing data in Python to really kind of get at the core of some of the questions that we have regarding an analysis. There was some data that were tripping us up, and we said, Jen, we just don't have the time to go through all of this hourly data. Can you, be a whiz, come up with some code and analyze, how some of these electricity generators are producing electricity across the year. And she's coming up with all of the answers. So it's very common to do research as a master's, and you can kind of get it as involved as you want to get.
Amazing, thank you. I do want to encourage those of you who have joined us today to submit any questions you have. Please don't be shy, feel free. You can raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak your question, or you can enter it in the Q&A. Christine, I think it would be great actually if you could just introduce yourself and share with the students how they will interact with you once they're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so again, my name is Christine Shea. I'm the graduate advisor here in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. Really, what's nice about our curriculum, it's pretty straightforward. So for those of you coming from undergraduate degrees in engineering, where it feels like, oh my goodness, if I miss one class, the whole sequence is off and I'm going to be here for 2 extra years. A graduate is a little bit easier, but we're still here to help you guide you along the path. If you're confused about if you want to be on the water track or the air track, we can give you some suggestions about which courses you can take in your first semester. And generally during your first semester at USC, we recommend that our students take 8 units, which is usually 2 classes a semester. I would say for our working students, we typically recommend just 4 units, which is generally 1 class, just to get your feet wet. We don't want you to overextend. Most of the students who are working, who have also tried to take more than 4 units, have looked back and realized that wasn't the greatest idea, either because their grades suffered or they just weren't able to do anything else. And it was just not a great balance. So again, if you're working, start off with 1 class. And if you kill it and it's easy for you, you have a couple other semesters where you can take more units. But it's good to start off the first semester a little bit lighter. But I think other things that I typically get asked, again, Dr. Sanders mentioned that directed research can be part of your program requirements. So if you are interested in research, that's something that you can do pretty easily, and just it builds right into your curriculum. We also have if some students who want to go beyond the stated requirements can do a thesis option as well. So if you really want to do a thesis option too, that is something you can look into, but it is optional. Some students ask if it's thesis optional, and it is.
Thanks, Christine. And I do see one question in the chat, and it's how can we apply for a PhD degree after finishing our master's degree? And just, from the faculty perspective, I can give you a few tips for that. You'll obviously have to go through the formal PhD application, but being a master's student in the program is actually a really good pathway to pursuing a PhD. Because you're actually going to get to meet the different faculty that you could work with. So if I'm a student and I'm applying to, let's say, University of Texas, I'm kind of applying and none of the professors know me. So I'm kind of just an application to them. I'm a TOEFL score, or I am a GPA, whereas you guys get to be humans to me. You get to introduce yourself to me. I get to know you as a person. I get to see how you perform in my class. I get to see, are you excited about these topics? Now the challenge for you is you have to come to class, and you have to sit in the front, and you have to be excited about energy, and you have to perform well in my class, and you have to, come to me and say, I'm really interested in your research. Is there any way that I could do a directed research credit for you? So if you guys are sitting here today with the idea that you might want to stay for a PhD in environmental engineer, if you want to be applying for that in a year and a half or 2 years, think about what that path looks like for you now. Think about which faculty member you might target, put a little target on that person, and think about, how am I going to connect with that person? How am I going to study? How am I really going to excel in his or her class? Because running a research group is kind of like running a small business. I'm applying for grants, I'm getting money, and then I need students to do the work that I promised other people. So I take all the credit, and then you guys do all the work. And so when I'm hiring PhD students, I'm thinking about, well, what student is the best fit for getting this body of work done to the sponsor, who I've promised these deliverables. So you can think about this like you have 2 years to basically impress the faculty member you want to work on. And I would say, think about the same thing, even if you don't want a PhD. Let's say you want a job, which I would think that universally jobs might be of interest to this group. I get asked for letters of recommendation every single year from a student who never introduced themselves to me, who never came to my office hours, who never sat after class. And that's fine. That student might have done very good in my class. But when they ask me for a letter of recommendation, all I can say is, well, Joe got an A. That's not a very inspiring letter of recommendation. Albert, I'm going to pick on you, Albert. Albert sat in the front row of my class. He showed up every day. He asked great questions. He did good on the exam. He came to office hours. He discussed his research. I can't help myself but to know who Albert is and that he was interested in energy. So the letter of reference writes itself. I have so many things that I can talk about Albert, even though he took my class several years ago. So even if you don't get to know all of your faculty on that personal level, make sure you know 1 or 2, because every single one of you is going to need a letter of recommendation. And again, about half of the students who asked me for a letter of recommendation, I know very well. And about half, maybe were little black boxes on Zoom and never came to class. And there's just not that much that we can do to help you. Like, we want to help you. We want to write the good letter of recommendation. But we can only do that if you give us something to work with. So I would say, starting today, that's, a good thing to think about. Any other questions? If we don't have any other questions, I'm going to take the opportunity to brag about my kid. Hold on, because it's going to be an extra credit question. So I want you guys to pay attention. So this is Jules. Christine's like, when did you have a kid, Kelly? This is Jules. This is my pride and joy. And if you can type in the chat how to spell Jules's name, I'm going to give you an extra point in my class because you all have to take it. So there's many ways you can spell Jules, but think about the fact that I'm an energy expert. And what is my dog's name? First person to type it in the chat gets an extra credit. If you all don't want to play my game, that's fine too. You won't get extra credit. You can just stare at my dog. Albert knows. Albert's heard way too much about my dog, so here she is.
You have an awesome dog. I never got to see him. I've always thought that if you ever get another one, you should name him Watt or Watts.
It's gonna be Watt or Bernoulli.
Oh, nice.
Hey,
Good choice.
Nobody's taking me up on these. Yes. So I need to write down your name. Is it Namisha? I will seriously, Namisha, when you take my class, I'm writing it in my research notebook, but you also have to send me an email and tell me that I owe you extra credit, and I promise you I will give it to you. See, that's all it takes to be successful in college, guys. Okay, if that didn't break the ice, I'm not sure what else I can do, Jessica.
Well, I think
you were cracking me up, and you
I know
my heart with that dog. So I'm filled with emotion at the moment.
I think another question, well, if the students are still thinking of others that we get, is how long it takes to complete the degree. The degree is 28 units, so that can usually be done in 3 semesters. Some of our students will elongate it to 4, but it's generally done in 3. I've seen some students try to cram it out in 2, but it's not, again, that hasn't always been recommended in hindsight, but we typically recommend 3 or 4 semesters. Summer isn't part of that equation, so you're looking at fall and spring throughout your time here.
And Christine, I know that students sometimes ask too when they have to decide what concentration they're going to choose, air or water. Is that something that can be chosen later? Can they switch? How does that work?
Yeah, I think if a student isn't sure, they typically can have that first semester to figure it out based on the courses that we're offering. That's what we're typically saying, because every student on the water track has to take an air course, and every air student track has to take a water course. So that we usually can set it up so the student has time to figure it out, and then hopefully they use that semester not just to go to classes, but then to speak to other students, speak to other faculty to get a better sense of what direction they want to go. I think if students want to switch after they've been here, it gets a little trickier just because if they've already invested maybe a semester or 2 in one direction, really that 2 semesters, they might have to be here a little bit longer. Not to say that you can't be, but if you're committed to getting out within the time frame we discussed, you probably want to have a good sense after that first semester. But again, taking advantage of classes and then faculty and your peers.
Great. Before we switch over to get to know Albert a little bit better, I just want to ask you, Dr. Sanders, for any final piece of advice to our future students. You've already given a lot of really good advice, but 2 years flies by. So if there's anything that you can share of how they can make the most of their time.
Yeah, I would say the biggest piece of advice is kind of along the advice that I've already given, but get to know your professors. It really does make a difference because our master's program in particular, a lot of master's students come in, they come to campus for a few hours, they might sit in class and they immediately leave. And they never really integrate themselves into the experience here. Don't let yourself do that because it really does matter. If you're a student that comes to my office hour week after week after week, and even if you're having challenges with the material, I'm going to see that you're trying, and that actually matters. It matters in the grading, it matters in the assignments. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Whereas if you're a student that, maybe you're just, I teach DEN classes, so some students can only attend virtually. But some students just never say hi or never get a chance to know me. And sometimes it's because they're shy, they're scared of me because I'm a very scary person. I'm really not. But get past that fear and come visit me in office hours, or even ask to make a Zoom appointment with me, because you're paying for this. You're paying to have one-on-one time with faculty, and you should really take advantage of that, because you're aligned to our networks, to our jobs, to our research, to A's in our classes. So it just will become a lot easier for you if you get to know the faculty that teach your class. And students are the least likely to come to class when they're the most confused. My biggest advice is, even if you're confused, even if you're last, still go to office hours, because that's really what they're for. A lot of times I find that the students who are the least confused come to office hours, and the most confused don't, because they're embarrassed. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Everybody on this panel today has struggled with something. For me, it was chemistry. Chemistry was the bane of my existence. I would have been a doctor had it not been for chemistry. So here we are. So we all have our Achilles heels, but get to know your professor.
Thank you. I see a question that I think, Christine, you might be able to handle very well. What do you see as the biggest challenge for international students during the master's degree?
I think it kind of goes along to what Dr. Sanders was talking about, just getting involved. There's so much going on at grad school in particular, just the transition from undergrad to grad. When you add on top of that, potentially coming to a new educational system, or just even a new city, even if you're domestic, it can be a lot to absorb. And there's definitely a lot going on at USC. So I really do think, though, Viterbi has gone a long way to make sure that they're onboarding opportunities before school even starts, to get to know your peers, get to know your department advisors and faculty. And I think, don't write those off. I think it's easy to focus on, I just got to get registered for classes, and that's what really is important. And it is. I will harass you to register for classes, please. But I also want to see students get engaged, again, with the community, student organizations, and all the different resources that we have, because it will enrich your time here, and really make you just a more valuable asset when you're looking for internships or career down the road.
And I don't know if I gave a proper introduction earlier to the Viterbi Admission and Student Engagement Office, but we also have a full staff of people that are here to support you as an international student, for all students, but for international students in particular. We have a lot of fantastic resources and support programming that we put on. You will certainly not feel alone as an international student at USC. You will quickly find a community, and just know that we're all here to help you out. I see another question. Do we have any time or opportunity for some part-time internships? I know internships are quite common for graduate students, if anyone wants to comment about that. And Albert, feel free to.
So yes, you can absolutely have an internship. Most of our students will do it during the summer, but you can actually get a degree credit for an internship during the school year. So that's another option. And if you want to talk about CPT or something like that, which is what we have our international students do for that degree credit, you can work with us, and we can figure out how we can get that started. But we do have our own career service center at USC, but within the Viterbi school, it's basically completely duplicated what every student can have, but it's targeted just for engineering students. So when we have a career fair for Viterbi students, all those companies have said, we want to come and hire engineering students. So we do have a full staff that help you with resume reviews, mock interviews, give you negotiation tips about salary. I think we just had one of the VCC, the Viterbi Career Connections employee staff members here, and she was just saying, oh, our students will often say, like, I'm not going to come unless you offer me this much. And they're like, that was like 10,000 lower than what we were going to start off at. So, it's good to have these resources so that you know how to like really powerfully negotiate once you do get the job too. So that would be my tip is, yes, you can do it. And then we have the resources to help you be competitive in that process.
Albert, have you had a chance to participate in any internships or work as a student?
No, well, I am a full-time, I do work full-time, so I haven't done an internship, but I will say that there are so many job and internship fairs here. I went to one just because it was in between classes and I stopped by and there were quite a few people there. I was really surprised at the amount of opportunities that USC students really get here. Yeah, just on a semester basis, there's like one or two every semester. I encourage all of you to just swing by one, see if anything catches your eye, or just even get your name out there, because the recruiters will often come back, and seeing a familiar face is always nice at one of those things. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities here. Don't worry about that.
Albert, what you said reminds me that, sometimes students coming from different schools discount the career fair because like, oh, it doesn't really do anything. At our career fair, the Viterbi Career Fair, people are getting interviewed on the spot potentially, if they are a good candidate. And for other employers, they have reserved space in our, within the engineering school, and they're coming back the next day or the next week to interview candidates. So it's meant to kind of just be an easy pathway. You don't have to drive anywhere. Don't worry. They're here for the recruitment day, and then they're here to come back for interviewing too, potentially.
Yeah, I'll say that even though I'm comfortable in my job, like I've gotten job offers just from swinging by, and so it's sometimes it's just that easy. You make a good impression, and you're selling yourself, and sometimes you just do a good job. Just have confidence yourself, walk in there like you belong there, and hey, you guys will come out fine.
Albert, I definitely want to give you a chance to fully introduce yourself. You've already been given a glowing review by Dr. Sanders, so we know a little bit. But if you could just share a little bit about how when you started the program, how you made the decision to come, and just a little bit more about you.
Sure. Well, so I'm Albert. I am doing a master's in environmental engineering on the air track. I started in fall 2019. I will be finishing up this winter. So it's taken 3.5 years. And that's because, like I said before, I'm working full-time, 40 hours a week. And so I'm a part-time student to not overburden myself. So yeah, it takes exactly 7 semesters because you need at least 7 classes for 28 units that you finish. I got my undergrad in 2014 at the school across town at UCLA. It was in environmental science. So I don't come from an engineering background. And so, if you guys have any questions about the workload, if you're not an engineer, if you're worried about that, you can ask me that. But I specifically chose USC because it's based in LA. I've been in LA my entire life. I love the city. I want to do more for the city. So I figured, a university based here is probably going to have the best knowledge about it. And that was totally on point. Everybody here has done so much research in LA. And I also really like the faculty. I did my research before I applied. I was really impressed by all the faculty here, Kelly Sanders included. And when I took her class, it was a blast. I'm really glad that all of you guys need to take Kelly Sanders' class, because I think it's a really great intro into the environmental world in general, but also that she's just a really great teacher. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. If you guys have any questions about like workload, work-life balance, I'd be happy to answer that.
I actually think that would be a great thing to hear about. How has it been balancing courses and working full time? How rigorous, how much of a workload is that? And I'm also curious how the classes and the things you're learning in school, how it's kind of helped what you do at work, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. So work-life balance is totally doable. If you're working 40 hours a week and you're a part-time student, it's totally doable. I would not recommend more than that. Certainly not. But it's particularly doable right now because most things tend to be online, or there's an option to do it online, and so you don't have to burden yourself with always going to school, or you just maybe sometimes work is just tough in a week. You feel like you would like to skip this time and just go online, and that's totally doable. And yeah, it's doable in the sense that the teachers here are really, the class sizes are small, so that's really, really nice, but also that you get to interact with really great faculty who really care about trying to impart the knowledge to you as best they can. You know, sometimes a lot of you have come from undergrad schooling where, you know, a professor just really couldn't care, you know, less, or, you know, they teach like 300 students all at once. And so like, you're just, you just have to like get in and out. But, you know, if you don't understand a concept, the teachers have, you can email them. The professors are really responsive. You know, I've gotten answers back from Kelly, like, you know, in the same hour. I've gotten, you know, if you go to office hours, they'll spend the time with you. So, you know, if you're scared about the workload, don't be. There's so many ways you can make the burden easier on yourself. And as for the second part of your question, how has coursework actually influenced my actual work? That's really interesting because I work in the Department of Water Resources. It's a state agency for California. And Kelly mentioned how there's so little water, so little actual natural water here in Los Angeles, and all of it comes from up north, the Sierra Nevada mountains. Well, my agency built the state water project that conveys all the water from the Sierra Nevada mountains all the way here. And so it's particularly relevant. And a lot of the coursework, for example, the air resources, the air pollution work that I do has helped me create models for some of the construction projects that I use for some of our studies. Yeah, I'll just say this: all the work that you do here is, at least on a graduate level, a lot of it is applicable to real life, the real world, in some way, shape, or form. At the very least, you'll be learning how to solve actual problems, and that knowledge and skill is going to be useful for the rest of your life. So yeah, there's so much that I've learned that I've been able to apply. Yeah, sometimes it feels like doing homework out there.
Thank you. Again, if any of you have questions for Albert, please feel free to enter them in the chat or the Q&A. It may have been a little challenging for you, Albert, as someone who's been working full time, but have you had a chance to experience much campus life? Are you involved in any organizations, or have you attended any events on campus?
I haven't attended, I wanted to attend a basketball game. I didn't get a chance to, but you know, I've watched a few football games with some of my colleagues. That was fun. Not on campus, but like, you know, at our apartments. And graduate life is a little bit different than like undergraduate life, which is a little bit more party hardy. But yeah, grad school, you tend to, everyone's a little more closer knit. Classes are smaller. If you're a PhD student, you'll probably get to really know your PhD colleagues. Master's students tend to stick together. But I encourage everyone to try and branch out and just experience more of not just USC, which has you know, a reputedly really good student life, but also like Los Angeles is like a cultural mecca. There's so much to do here. You know, there's Koreatown that's not too far between here and the beach. You can take the Expo line all the way down to Santa Monica, Venice. You know, you can, downtown's right over there. Skip Hollywood, that's so overrated. But you know, there's so many things you could do here. And I encourage everyone to do it, because otherwise you just get burnt out on schoolwork. And there's so much fun to be had here. It's the place I grew up. It's the place I hope to stay for many years. So yeah, you guys should really try and enjoy Los Angeles and USC life.
That's definitely some insider LA knowledge. I know that also students ask about safety. It tends to be a big concern when moving to a city as large as Los Angeles. Can you speak to that a little bit, especially as an LA native, and particularly about the area around USC? What are some ways students can feel safe? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the reputation is really there. It's definitely not as bad as well, few things are ever as bad as people say, but it has gotten a lot better, especially with the I forget what it's called, but like the campus that's built around the dorms. That is really like opened up a really good safe buffer space between LA and like USC. If you tend to stay around there, it's very safe. There is there's on-campus police. That's not just like other campus police. That's actually like part of LAPD. There's so many tools that they give you to stay safe. I also speak from a point of privilege as a male. I don't ever feel unsafe walking around, even at night. It may be very different for you if you're a woman. So don't stick around past like dark hours. Don't as long as you're safe about it. There's really easy ways to protect yourself from all of that. But greater LA is generally pretty safe. I take public transportation all the time. In fact, that's the only way I take it to get into USC. There's downtown is definitely not as bad as people think. It's actually a really fun place to go. So yeah, it's like most other cities, to be honest. And that's there's just use common sense. You'll be okay out there.
Thank you. Any questions for Albert? Do you have a favorite memory or experience in the program that you'd like to share? Favorite class?
Favorite class? Yeah, Kelly. Well, Kelly's is up there. I don't want to just gas Kelly up all day, but the 5 I'm working up that letter of recommendation. That was my first experience at USC, her class. That was the first class, the only class I'd taken that semester. And I came away really optimistic, just thinking like, if the rest of the faculty is like this, then this is going to be a great time. And the rest of the faculty is really great. I think a personal accomplishment of mine that I was really proud of was that I had taken an environmental fluids class with Patrick Lynette, and I had never touched matrix math. I went over it briefly in pre-calc. That was like bundled with pre-calculus in high school, and that was like my only experience with it. And that was the hardest class I've ever taken. There was like just vector. I had to learn vector notation, and it was a struggle for a good 8 weeks, 10 weeks, maybe even more. And I had to like show up to every office hours just to like drill the concepts into me. And he was super patient. And I got an A in the class. So I came away with it really. I had to learn also MATLAB too. I'd never touched MATLAB, so it was double whammy. But that was a personal accomplishment of mine. Just and also just like the faculty just being so patient with me. So if I can do it, I think anyone could do it. So yeah, that's a personal highlight for me here.
That's so cool. Thank you so much. If no one has any additional questions, we can wrap up. I just want to allow Dr. Sanders. Oh, we have a question. What is the most rewarding experience and why attending USC? Albert, would you like to share the most rewarding part of studying at USC and why you chose it?
Well, that kind of links back to like me being from LA, just the fact that everybody here has research directly related to Los Angeles, also just greater California in general. I love the state of California, hopefully stay here for the rest of my life. And I just want to give back to the city, to California. And I think you have a really good opportunity to do that here, whether that's through research or just the curriculum that you get usually tends to be focused, with examples from Los Angeles or examples from California. And it's particularly relevant for me in that sense. So everything that I learn here, I know is in some way, shape, or form applicable to my future career, to hopefully stay here in California. I was always given the advice back in undergrad, try and aim for a university. If you love cities, if you love a particular region, try and aim to get into a university from that city, because that exponentially increases your chances of landing a job there in the future. So if you like Los Angeles, there are so many great universities here, but I'm really glad I landed here, and it's paid off. So yeah, that's probably my favorite thing. Everything I learned here is just going to be so useful for my career here somewhere in California in the future.
Dr. Sanders, what's the most rewarding thing about teaching at USC?
For me, I think it's the diversity of students that I get to work with. I mean, I have a research group and I've had students from, all over the world, different cultural, different genders, different ethnicities, and that's been really rewarding. I've gone out to authentic Chinese meals with my student. He's taught us about some of the cultures that he and his family enjoy. I went to his wedding, so I had a full 11-course Chinese meal. Had students from Armenia do the same thing, students from Thailand. So I just gotten to learn so much through my students, and then bringing their experiences with how they grew up and where they grew up, and their traditions and cultures. And so that's just been really fun for me.
That is so special. Christine, do you want to add anything?
I've worked at USC for a while, and it's really I really enjoy working with engineering students. I think I'm on my 15th year, and they're a fun group. I think it's really great that they're working on things that we need to better society. I want water in California because, like Albert, I don't want to move. This is the only place I want to be. So, it's just really rewarding to work with people and be a small part of, hopefully pushing a solution through that keeps it. Sorry, my lights turn off if I don't move enough. Gives us clean water or just access to water, and all those other different engineering problems that are out there that I hope someone will solve.
I'm with you. I'm always amazed by the things that our students do. On that note, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all again for your time today. We really hope to welcome you to USC this fall. I want to thank Dr. Sanders. It's been so inspiring to hear from you and the work that you do, and the advice that you've given to students. Christine, Albert, thank you guys so much. I'm going to allow you also to say any final words before I close out.
Thank you guys so much for attending, and I'm really excited to meet you this fall.
Likewise, I hope that we see you here in the fall. It's a great place to be, and we look forward to working with you.
Yeah, it was nice seeing you all virtually. Hopefully I get to see you maybe personally in the fall. I got one more semester to go. Maybe I'll catch one of you. But if you come here, you made the right choice, and I hope you guys have fun.
Thank you all. Fight on.